friends, it's Hannah and welcome back to my channel. If you clicked on today's video, then I'm sure you know what's in store for today. That's right, we are going to be reading only Stephen King for an entire week. And I'm actually pretty excited about it. It's supposed to be very rainy and gloomy this entire week. I actually have not read very much Stephen King before, but I'm really curious to kind of dive more into his overall universe. His universe and a lot of his books correlate to one another, so I'm intrigued. I have read Fairy Tale by Stephen King, and I've also read Billy Summers by Stephen King. Both of those books were 4 stars for me. Normally Stephen King writes horror, sometimes he dives into science fiction. I'm going to be reading 2 books in this video that are a little bit different than what Stephen King normally does. These are probably not his most popular books, but to me, I kind of want to get my feet wet, as you would say, with Stephen King without going too far into the deep end with some of his scarier books. And actually I've started one of his books already. The first book in today's reading vlog is going to be Misery by Stephen King. Misery is a thriller, I guess you could say, with a little bit of a horror element to it. So in this book we are following Paul, and Paul has been in a very serious car accident. He cannot move his legs at all whatsoever. He is very immobilized. And once he gets into this car accident in this Colorado town in the middle of winter, this woman named Annie ends up taking him in and basically holds him hostage. Yeah, that's low-key terrifying. So Annie is holding him hostage, and really the only way for Paul to survive is to write a novel. He is a writer. He's basically done with the series that he has previously written. It is like a historical fiction type of series, and the main character's name is Misery. However, Annie is really forcing him to write another book at her request. I, as you can see, have made a pretty good sized dent in this book so far. I would say I'm 30% of the way through. I'm on page 130. And I think the total pages in this are 350, so it's not a very big book. His writing is digestible. It's a lot more character driven and story driven as opposed to plot and action scenes, if that makes sense. I am definitely kept on the edge of my seat with this. Some of the turmoil that is caused based on Paul's pain through his car accident is really terrifying to read about, and it's actually making me feel a little bit squirrely. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just anytime there's harm to somebody, it definitely makes me a little bit uneasy. So yeah, we're gonna get back to reading this guide. Hello, it is Hannah from the future with a reading update. I am officially about 60% of the way through Misery at this point. I'm on page 187, and the plot is really starting to pick up now. It was a little bit slow towards the beginning with the initial setup of basically our main character. He is being held against his will. He is being held hostage, and yeah, he can't move or walk because of the car accident that he was in. What I like about Misery so far is the overall setting. It is very isolated. It does take place majority during the wintertime, so keep that in mind if you pick this up and you're more of a seasonal reader. And I am really enjoying the fact that there's a lot of wit and critical thinking that our main character has to employ to be able to get out of this really dire situation. He is using his power as an author to kind of manipulate his captor Annie into basically letting him survive. So for that aspect, I find it very brilliant. Stephen King does use a lot of descriptor words in this. So the first 10 to 15% of the book felt very slow. Now I'm at the point where it's starting to pick up a little bit more. The plot has a little bit more intrigue to me, and I am curious to see how this is going to end, because at this point it could go either way. I could see the ending really working in favor for our main character, and I could also see it going in a completely other way where the ending isn't as glamorous and hopeful as what I initially thought. So I don't know. I guess we're just going to have to see. Is it my favorite thriller that I've ever read? Probably not. And I predominantly read mysteries and thrillers, and probably fantasy is my other top rated, most read genre that I read. Yeah, I just think due to the amount of gore and intense pain that our main character is going through, that is turning me off from this a little bit. I think if it was much more psychological kind of a thriller, I would have been more in tune with it. But yeah, with the amount of like bodily harm and pain that our main character is going through is making me much more uneasy. So that's why I think this kind of borders more on the horror side, just due to the fact there's a lot of like mentions of injuries and how that plays out on the main character's like psyche. I'm enjoying it. Am I loving it? No. But I'm definitely entertained, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen. So I'm kind of unwinding for the evening. I'm going to read a little bit before bed, and then I will give you guys a better update tomorrow. Hello, we're back with another reading update. So yeah, basically I've made some really good headway into Misery by Stephen King. It is really starting to get very gruesome. I do not recommend eating anything while you read this. Do not have a snack. Maybe have a little like fun drink or a cup of tea or something like that, but do not eat anything if you read this book. There's a lot more blood and gore and torture in this book than I originally anticipated there to be, and so for that reason it is starting to make me feel very uneasy. There's a little bit of that towards the beginning, but we just finished a scene and my mouth was literally on the floor. I was panicking for our main character, Paul. Poor Paul, all he is trying to do is simply survive, and the only way he knows how to do that is by writing this book for this woman, Annie, who is like holding him captive. It's really the only thing that's giving him solace, the only thing that is really keeping his mind off of this like torturous events that like keep happening to him. I am hoping to finish it by tomorrow. I started this yesterday, it's Saturday, today is Sunday. So I'm hoping to have it done by tomorrow. And you guys, it is actually raining right now. I don't know if you could hear it or not, but it is absolutely perfect for finishing this book. So I'm just gonna sit and hopefully read for the next couple hours, get through another big chunk of this book, and hopefully finish it by like tomorrow. This rain could not have come at a better time. I am absolutely stoked to be reading Stephen King right now. I finished Misery. That's right, I sat down and I finished the entire thing. I was glued to these pages. I had to figure out what happened to poor freaking Paul in this book. And what happens to him is actually low-key very terrifying and traumatizing. So for that aspect of it, I could not put down this book for the last 100 pages. It's flying through them trying to figure out what was going to happen, and the ending is so freaking good. The ending makes this book, honestly. Most of the initial setup takes about 2/3 of this book. It is a little bit slow, a little monotonous. We are in the same location, the same setting the entire time, which is not a bad thing, but there's only so much our main character can do day to day if he's just living in the same room, in the same house, day in and day out kind of thing. Yes, I enjoyed this. I would not say that I absolutely loved it. And honestly, I would categorize this more as a thriller or horror. There was a lot more blood and gore and torture in this book than I anticipated. And because of that, I think it leans more horror. And yeah, feel free to agree or disagree in the comments down below. But to me personally, if it has a lot of descriptions around pain and what that is happening for our main character in his mind and how it's described, yeah, it's gonna be horror for me. Blood and gore. definitely counts, I think. I also really enjoyed Stephen King's, just the way that he explores the way that bad things can happen. Every bone in your body broken, you could be so broken and crumbled as a person, but who you are and what your passions are, no one can take that away from you. And I think that's explored really, really well in Misery. If that's something that interests you, then definitely pick this up. That finishes our first Stephen King book. I think I would give this somewhere between like 3 to 3.5 stars, just because it was very slow leading up to the last 100 pages. And then at that point I was just like hooked to it, but it took me an initial moment to like get into it. So in that regard, I'm glad I read Misery. It was a fun ride. I enjoyed it. It was not my favorite of King's that I've read so far, but it was fun. So I wonder if you guys can guess what the next book is going to be. It's more of a sci-fi horror that King has recently written. The Institute. The Institute. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This has been on my TBR for so long, and I actually picked this up from the library. And I also have the audiobook, so I'm going to do a tandem read between the physical copy and the audiobook while I work today. And I actually started this last night, and if you can see, I am a little bit in. I think I'm on page 100 exactly. Yeah, I'm on page 100 exactly out of like 500 and, oh geez, there's a lot more pages in here than I initially thought. 560. So it's a little bit bigger, obviously, than Misery, but I'm not going to let that intimidate me because I am flying through this book so far. So the initial setup is kind of broken into two different timelines and perspectives. So the first chapter really focuses on Tim, who is a cop. He is let go, forced to resign based on a very unfortunate situation that he was involved in at work. So he's now drifting through life. He's trying to make his way from Florida to New York City. So he's basically hitchhiking his way across the South to get up there. He ends up getting into South Carolina, where he meets a group of fellow small town cops, and he agrees to be a night knocker, which is, I believe it's a cop that just goes door to door to the various different businesses in the town just to make sure that they're taken care of and that they're locked up for the night, that they don't need anything. So he takes that role. He's in this town, and his story and his background, I was like, okay, what's going to happen to Tim? What's going to go on with Tim? And then it abruptly ends. And then we pick up another timeline, which is focused on this kiddo. Luke Ellis is an extraordinarily gifted young man. He's 12 years old. He wants to get 2 college degrees at the exact same time, and he's capable of doing so because he's incredibly intelligent. He also has a special power, if we shall say. He has telekinesis abilities. He's able to move things with his mind, but he doesn't really know how to control it or when it's going to happen or how to do it. Unfortunately for Luke, he is going to bed one evening and then he gets kidnapped and taken by these evil people to go and stay at this place called the Institute, where other kidnapped kids with special abilities are being held. And that's kind of where he's at right now. He's trying to figure out how he got there, what's happened to his parents, what does this mean going forward? And it seems like this is going to be the central focus for most of the story. The other kids there are describing to Luke that they have gone through some experimentation with all of these various like doctors and nurses that are like on site there to figure out what gives them their superpowers. This is giving very much like Stranger Things, Duffer Brother vibes. But if Stranger Things was more focused on the kids at like the hospital that they were doing tests on for 11, that's kind of what this is giving. And in that regard, I think this is gonna be, I know it won a Goodreads Choice Award for horror, but it's feeling very science fiction to me right now and very like fiction leaning. So I'm curious to see if this is like a subgenre that I'm gonna really enjoy, which is like horror science fiction. So I guess we'll just have to see, but I'm really enjoying it so far. I am totally hooked to the plot line. Anything that leans more science fiction is already gonna capture my attention just because I love science fiction. Yeah, that being said, I'm gonna get back to listening to the Institute. It's time for me to go to work for the day, so I'm gonna listen to it and check in with you guys at the end of the day. Well, I did quite a bit of reading today. I essentially read another 100 pages of The Institute, and I've been waffling back and forth between this physical copy that I got from the library and the audiobook. I will say the audiobook is fantastic. If you're hesitant into picking up Stephen King because the book is too chunky for you, definitely pick up the audiobook because the narrator does a really good job with all the various different voices. It doesn't feel like he is reading the story to you. It feels more of like a radio voice or a really good narration. So for that, I definitely recommend the audiobook. It is what I listened to for the majority of today while I was working. And then I sat down and I binged a little bit more of the book. So essentially where we are in the story now, I'm on page 248. I'm almost halfway, if you can see that. Where we are now with the story is, okay, so Luke, he is being held captive at this place called the Institute. So he's subjected, along with these other kids that are there, to experimentation. He is forming friendships. He is also starting to lose hope a little bit. He finds out some information about his parents, and he realizes that he needs to get out or he may not survive much longer at this location. He's trying to formulate, what is he gonna do? Is he gonna be able to escape? And so I am completely obsessed with the storyline so far. I am hooked. I'm absolutely loving his writing and his storytelling. I'm really invested in the characters. I have to figure out what happens to poor Luke. He is just this classic good boy, doing what he's told. He doesn't want to rock the boat. He's one of those really smart kids who just is content with knowing a lot of things and being a very academically bright kid, and he just doesn't want to get in trouble. I really hope that poor Luke is able to get out of the Institute, but there's also 300 more pages, and I know in typical Stephen King fashion it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. And it's interesting because also in this institute there's a front half and a back half, so a lot of the new kids end up in this front half is what they call it, to do the testing, and then at a certain point in time they move the kids to the back half, and nobody really knows what happens in the back half of the institute or what kind of experimentation or what goes on back there, which adds another layer of direness to his situation because he wants to be able to get out and escape essentially before he is taken to the back half, because nobody seems to know if the kids ever make it out of the back half. I have hope for Luke. I hope it turns out okay, but I also know that Stephen King is Stephen King and he's probably gonna make me cry. So we're just gonna have to keep reading and see what happens. But am I hooked? Yes. Should you read this book? Also yes. And I definitely recommend the audiobook if the length of the novel freaks you out. So get back to reading for the day. I finished The Institute. You guys, this is so good. I cried at the end. I actually read some of this outside today, which was absolutely perfect. It was raining quite a bit this week, and it was just really nice to be able to sit out in my front yard and kind of read in the shade for a little bit. Oh my gosh, I loved this so much. The ending. You know, when there's just so much drama and trauma that happens to our main characters, and then at the end they get a satisfying ending, a happy ending. I was floored. I could not put this down. It's so good. Definitely 5 stars. Easy 5 stars. I loved this. There's a quote on page 548, which I think summarizes this book in its true essence and kind of the overall message of the book really well. And sane people don't sacrifice children on the altar of probability. That's not science, it's superstition. And I think that really digs deep into what this book is about, the fact that it is not okay. It is never okay to hurt children for government exploitation, for adult gains, for personal gains by adults. It's just all around wrong. It's never okay to take advantage of them. I loved the story and the message of this book. The writing was fantastic. I also really enjoyed all the various characters that band together and form this really close bond as a core friend group while all the kids are at the Institute. I felt like that was really endearing, and it gave me such Stranger Things vibes from some of the earlier episodes in that TV show. I also really enjoyed the cop that was in this story. We're kind of following his perspective at the beginning, and then he comes in a little bit more towards the end as Tim and Luke's timelines kind of overlap a little bit. I really grew to love all of these characters. I kept rooting for them. I was emotionally attached to all of them. And of course, Stephen King does a really great job with narration style writing. It is written in third person, so you're not really getting a lot of inner monologue, but there are thoughts that are explained throughout, kind of like inner motivations, and especially with some of the kids that have like telepathy powers, he does incorporate some of that into the story, which I thought was really unique. Overall, I felt like this was a fantastic read. I need to read more Stephen King, and especially need to read more sci-fi. To summarize, we read 2 books in today's video. We read Misery and we read The Institute. And this was just a really good reading vlog to basically see if Stephen King is an author that I could see myself gravitating towards more. And I think I need to check out more of his works. I'm interested to check out more of his backlog. If there are any books by Stephen King that you would recommend for me to read, please leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!